Hey guys, I am excited for this episode of EyeSwoon Unplugged because I am going to make for you one of my favorite desserts that I've made for you plenty of times before. It's a rustic tart or a crostata or a galette. You can call it whatever you want. I have all these leftover pears from a shoot the other day. They were props. And when life gives you some pears, you're gonna make a pear tart. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna slice these guys up. I am going to make a very simple pastry that I really want you to know and learn and love and not be intimidated by, because it can carry you through the entire year. Summer with berries and stone fruit, and winter with apples and pears. I'm also gonna add some ginger and a little cinnamon and a little bit of lemon zest to make it kind of warming and tangy. And my favorite part about this recipe is that once you compose and put the entire tart together, you can put it on a sheet pan and pop it directly in the freezer. The reason this is so great is you can prepare in advance. It's great for you to use or make for the holidays because you can make it the night before, you can freeze it a few hours before, and straight from the freezer, it goes right into a hot oven. But let's just hop in. I'll take you through this process. It's such a good recipe, and it's a great way for you to use any type of fall fruit. All right, guys, when you make a tart, the very first thing you should do is make the pastry. Reason being is that the pastry needs to be refrigerated. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. It's really simple. I'm using a food processor. If you don't have one, you can totally make this dough with your hands as well. Another trick is I'm gonna take this stick of butter and I'm gonna cut it up into small little cubes. And while I'm making the rest of the dough, I'm gonna pop it in the freezer. So the colder the butter and the bigger little chunks of butter that you have, about pea size, the flakier the crust you're gonna get. Okay, we have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now I'm gonna get some granulated sugar. All we need is 1 tablespoon. We need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna hit dough and I'm gonna pulse just to mix the sugar, the salt, and the flour together. I have a 1/4 cup of ice water here. So I'm adding 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to the ice water. I'm gonna put maybe half of the butter and I'm gonna dissipate it so that it's not being dropped in the same place. And now I'm going to continue to pulse and drop the rest of the butter in. You almost want pea-sized pieces of butter, and that's when you know you're in a good place. I'm gonna begin to slowly pour in the liquid. So you can always add more liquid. You can't really take away, so use the liquid sparingly. When I pinch it, it is holding shape, and dump it right onto the plastic. I'm gonna just pat it into a disc. You guys ask me all the time where my refrigerator is, and it is hidden in this wall of cabinetry. So I figured I would just give you a little glimpse of what's in the fridge, popping that in the fridge for at minimum 1 hour. So if you're gonna make this recipe, just make sure you build in that 1 hour and utilize that time to prep the other ingredients for the filling of the tart. All right, I want about 1 tablespoon of ginger. So you take a spoon and you just rub it against the skin of the ginger. Somehow it works even better than a vegetable peeler. So I'm gonna grate it on a microplane. I am going to put 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. I have already begun to zest some lemon directly into our sugar. It's crazy once you kind of just massage the lemon zest ever so slightly into the sugar, you can smell how much of those essential oils get released. Add the ginger, and I'm gonna add a little bit of cinnamon, but it's about 1/4 cup. Right here, I have a vanilla bean. I'm gonna slice it vertically down the center. Take my knife and run it along. Those are the vanilla beans. Now I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of lemon juice. So when you are going to slice your pears, you cut them in half, and then what you wanna do is slice them as thin as you possibly can, but you wanna keep the pear actually intact because you wanna fan it out when it's still a half a pear. I mean, I'm trying to slice these as thin as possible, but honestly, like, the beauty of this tart is that it's a rustic tart. The crust is not perfect. It's, you know, folded over and imperfect to the core. So if you do not have the knife skills to slice super thin, or if you are in a rush, honestly, any way that you cut and place these will absolutely work. You kind of want the pears to kind of fan out like this. The overall goal is for this to be about 10 to 12 inch diameter. So you'll see some of the pieces are separating, but because this is a rustic tart, you don't really have to worry about that so much, but I am gonna try to roll those separating edges towards one another so they begin to meet. All right, I have all of that goodness with the ginger and the sugar and the vanilla. I'm gonna kind of spread it out like a paste. You basically just take the edge of your paper and you fold it over. Fold it over again. I have some egg yolk here. I am just gonna brush the outside of the crust and then sprinkle with some turbinado sugar. I'm also going to take some turbinado sugar, maybe like a tablespoon, and sprinkle it on the top of the pears. A little bit of lemon zest. This is going to go into the freezer for at least 30 minutes, but up to overnight before we pop it in the oven. It's a foolproof recipe. I promise you, don't be intimidated by it. It is so incredibly beautiful and delicious and so appropriate for this season. As always, you can find this Unplugged recipe and all of my others on EyeSwoon.com.